A brief history of the USA, from colony to superpower. First of all, let's have a look at a map of the United States. You can also click and try a geographical quiz about the 50 states. What about Native Americans? What do you know about them? Which geographical names or names of cities of Native American origin do you know? The first human inhabitants arrived in the American continent around 20,000 to 60,000 years ago, crossing the bridge of land that once linked Asia to Alaska. And this is one of the most famous, the best known Native American, that's Sitting Bull. Each tribe of Native Americans adapted to their environment and lived by gathering and hunting their food, farming and fishing. But they did not use the wheel and did not know the horse until the first Spanish colonizers arrived in America. But Europeans also brought firearms and diseases such as smallpox, measles, influenza, that soon drastically reduced their number by 90%. The English founded settlements along the Atlantic coast. Their first successful colony was Jamestown in Virginia in 1607, where they started planting cotton and tobacco. But also the first ship carrying African slaves arrived in 1619. The Pilgrim Fathers, 35 out of 102, belonged to a radical Puritan sect escaping persecution in England, arrived on the ship the Mayflower in 1620 and established a colony in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And also, to their relationship with local Native Americans, this is the origin of the first Thanksgiving, the national celebration that is held every fourth Thursday of November in the United States. Since the USA were a colony, they sought independence very soon because they grew, the original 13 colonies grew in terms of population and economic strength. And Britain imposed more and more taxation. In 1773, in the Boston Tea Party, a group of protesters, disguised as Native Americans, attacked British ships and threw their cargo of tea into Boston Harbor. On the 4th of July 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia, and George Washington became the first president of the USA. After the independence was achieved, the USA grew dramatically in size when, in 1803, a massive area of land around the Mississippi and the Great Plains was sold by French Emperor Napoleon that needed money for his warfare in Europe. Then Florida was purchased from the Spanish in 1819, and by 1848 Mexico had been forced to hand over Texas, New Mexico, and California. People had started to move westward across the continent, go west, to settle in the Great Plains, the Rocky Mountains, and California, where gold had been discovered. What about Native Americans? They were forced out of their original settlements and relocated in reserves. The Civil War was the only war fought on American land. The northern states were the main centers of finance, commerce, and manufacturing. The southern states were mainly agricultural and used slave labor to produce tobacco, sugar, and cotton. Tension increased when Abraham Lincoln was elected president. In 1861, Lincoln abolished slavery. The southern states left the Union, the Unionists, and formed the Confederate States of America. and so the southern states were called the Confederates. Civil war lasted from 1861 to 1865, with the final victory of Unionists. Also, immigration shaped the United States of America as we know them today. And the last 20 years of the 19th century were a time of exceptional economic growth, and millions of immigrants arrived from Asia to the Pacific coast, and from Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe to the Atlantic coast, also from France, from Germany, from nations that nowadays attract more immigrants and do not send them away. But in those times, also from some northern European countries came many of future Americans. And in the 20th century, in this exceptional growth movement, the USA becomes a superpower. Since the beginning of the 20th century, the USA became a protagonist of the international scene, especially in the Americas. The Monroe Doctrine argued that any intervention in the politics of the Americas by foreign powers was a potentially hostile act against the United States. And after the intervention at the end of World War I in Europe, the USA became a protagonist in World War II. On the 7th of December 1941, the Japanese attacked the American naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The following day, war on Japan was declared. Before that, the USA had sent materials to the Allies. On the 11th of December 1941, war to the USA was declared by Italy and Germany, Japan's allies. And troops were sent to Europe, where they helped to overthrow fascism and Nazism. On the 9th of July 1943, they disembarked in Sicily. On the 21st of July 1943, marked the end of the fascist regime, and on the 6th of June 1944, so-called D-Day, Allied troops landed in Normandy. War in Europe ended on the 8th of May 1945 with the surrender of Nazi Germany. However, it was only after the USA dropped nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 that the Japanese surrendered and the war ended. After the end of World War II, the United States and Russia, the Soviet Union, became the protagonist of a long period of time called the Cold War. Much of the second half of the 20th century, 1945-1989, was marked by the Cold War between the world's superpowers, the USA and the USSR. Their allies became part of the NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Although there was no direct military conflict, there was extremely political and military tension. Both countries developed an arsenal of nuclear weapons. And finally, please answer, in your own words, discuss the following questions. First question: Native Americans and European settlers. Discuss their relationship. Second question: discuss slavery in the USA, its origin, and the role in the Civil War. Third question: the USA in Europe during World War II and the Cold War. Fourth, discuss the role of the USA as a 20th century superpower.